Hello, lovelies. Happy Worth Kit Day. So this is the video where we talk about, where ducks jump in, and we talk about the areas of our lives where we don't allow ourselves to feel worthy and we don't allow ourselves to receive that sense of value and purpose. And it's interesting that the duck talks in, because ducks are all about grace and ease, and they let so much roll off their back, just like water. If you've ever seen a duck jump up, like it does, it literally beads up and it won't even soak in. And so I think that's a perfect segue to start out with, is allowing ourselves to say, okay, what is in the way of letting other people's opinions and views roll off of me? And that's a scary thing, because our worth is created in infancy. It's created, the moment we're conceived, we're either wanted or unwanted. For example, even with my own children, you can tell a difference in the children who were planned and wanted from the beginning and celebrated when we found out we were pregnant, to the ones who were conceived with abuse, or the one who was conceived when I was separated and didn't want to be pregnant at the time. And you can just tell in the personality, in the way they interact with the world, in the way they view themselves in relationships. It affects every part of us, because everything that the mother feels, we are going to feel as a baby. And so, no pressure, moms, right? And so all of those chemicals are going through, and emotions are energy, and chemicals in motion, and it's going to move through. And it doesn't matter where you came from or whether or not you were wanted by the person who carried you or the person who seeded you. You were meant to be here because you were meant to be here. If you look at the science behind the things that have to go into play to even conceive, that's a lot of perfectly aligned. Even if you think of all of the universe and all of the cosmos and all of the energies and all of the beings and all of the creatures that have ever existed, if we tune into your essence and you being the unique vessel that you are, you're the only one. You're the only one ever. And if you changed even one tiny timeline thing, you would be completely different. Or you would be a completely different person. So you and yourself are worthy and worth so much, because there's only one. And I know we kind of roll those off because we're like, well, that's what everybody says, but it doesn't sink into my unconscious. Well, that's what we're going to talk about. Part of the reason that it's so hard for that to sink in is because as we're growing up, we're told you're a good girl, bad boy, bad girl. I love you, so I'm going to give you affection. Oh, you did something wrong, so I'm going to smack you. I'm going to tell you you did wrong. I'm going to reject you, all of those things. And so it's finding balance somewhere in the middle. And, as parents, the punishment piece comes to play. So we punish in order to help convey the message that a choice was wrong, that there's a better way, that is not the path to take. The downside of that is that if we don't have the follow through of the full circle to say, hey, this is actually how a better way of thinking, or here, let me correct this behavior rather than punishing the behavior, then what it can create is a sense of needing to be punished every time we make a poor choice. So we don't forgive ourselves, because then we fear that more bad things will happen. Or if the only thing we learned was what not to do, that doesn't seem to have enough of a negative energy impact to be enough that we get to feel positive. So as an example, you touch a hot stove as a child, and your parent slaps your hand, says, don't do that, that's so hot, you're burned yourself, look what you did. And they make you feel like crap emotionally. They make you feel rejected by the person who helped bring you life and is supposed to protect you and nurture you. And then they also inflicted additional pain. So next time you go to touch a stove, you're going to be less likely, because you're going to get smacked again and get that same reaction. Or you could touch the stove, learn for yourself, it's actually really hot, I'm not going to do that anymore. And then you get comfort for your pain, like, oh, sweetie, oh, you're hurt, and I'm so sorry you're hurt. Yeah, we learned this lesson, huh? Okay, let's not touch it anymore, huh? Okay. And then the lesson's able to go through. So that's how we learn through our pains versus being punished for pain. And so asking yourself, and this is a really good time to grab a journal if you don't have one out, but maybe asking yourself, where is it that I feel like I need to still be punished? What pains do I feel like I didn't suffer enough, so I can't let it go? Because that's one of the stories that we hold on to, is I have to suffer in order to let this go. And if I don't feel like the suffering has reached its highest peak, then I can never let this thing go. But that's just not true. did the lesson get learned? Well, yeah, the lesson got learned. Okay, then I can let this go. Oh, I can go be happy now? No, but I didn't suffer enough. We'll also flip that onto other people. For example, I always use my life because it's the one I know, right? For example, my ex-husband left me for another woman. And, you know, I was devastated, suicidal, like just had no purpose. And all of my worth was gone because my whole life I had been taught, you know, be the perfect wife, have dinner ready at 5, do all these things, look a certain way, be this, be that, and then your husband will love you forever. In fact, even my grandma said, don't ever let your husband leave the house with your hair in curlers. Why? Because he might not come home. And I was like, oh, okay, grandma, ha ha ha. Oh, maybe my husband left because I would wear curlers in my hair when he was gone, because I actually did that. Oh no, I'm cursed. Which none of that is actually true, and none of that actually defines my worth. But then after the relationship ended, I was able to have freedom that I wasn't brave enough to claim for myself. And all of these beautiful, wonderful things came from it. Was it painful? Yes. Was it his fault? All that I was painful? No. Because I was the one who put this expectation that I have to have this and this is what makes me feel worth. So when that went away, I no longer had worth. And so the anger that we feel when things like that happen also may say like, oh, well, I hope he suffers. Like people would say that to me all the time. Well, he's never going to be happy. He's going to suffer. It's not going to work out. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm preparing for it to work out. Like I hope that somebody that caused somebody else and their family so much pain to go find their happiness. I hope that worked and they found happy. Like I would want it to be worth it. And so we get into the space of, well, they don't deserve to be happy and I don't deserve to be happy and I deserve it, but you don't. And then we start pointing fingers, and what that does is it robs us of our own ability to feel worthy no matter what, because it makes our worth conditional, just like our love. Love is conditional and worth is conditional, because if I reject you and if I say you're negative and therefore, and you're bad and you did this horrible thing, then therefore if I do something bad, I don't get to have what I want either. And if I do something just a little bad, I don't get to have what I want either. And do you see how that makes a conditional way of thinking? So instead we allow ourselves to say, you know what? My worth is not dictated by my actions. It really isn't. You are the only one that ever existed. You are the most rare thing in all of the universe because you're the only one. It's like Tigger. You're the only one, right? And so because you're the only one, no matter what happens, it's worth a ton. Like there's some really ugly antiques that have no use. They have zero function, but they're worth a lot of money. Why? Because they're the only one left. And you know, there's cars and there's planes that didn't even, like, we've evolved past that. We've made better things, but then because they're the only one, they have value. Because you're the only one, you have value. And even though there may be better things out there that we compare ourselves with, it doesn't mean your worth is dictated by it. Also, with worth, as we evolve, it's really important that we understand worth isn't something that we earn. You can't ever earn it. It's something you claim. So worth is not something I earn. Worth is something I claim. So allowing yourself to dive in and say, what makes me worthy? Now, a lot of life coaches would dive in and start with, hey, here's how you feel worth. Make a list of all the things you love about yourself. Make a list of all the things that make you worthy of love. And that works on some level. And if that's where you're at, make those lists. But I definitely encourage you to move past that and say, you know what? I'm going to delete the word deserve out of my vocabulary completely. Because deserve means that I get it because I'm doing good. And so if I'm ever having a rough day or doing bad, I don't deserve to be happy. And so I have to be miserable. And because I have to be miserable from those things, I should just be miserable every day. And it creates this spiral. And we do it to ourselves all the time. We just don't realize we're doing it. So I want you to take a moment and picture in your mind the cutest little 2-year-old. And you can be auntie or grandma or grandpa or, you know, a next door neighbor. And this cute little 2-year-old comes up and says, those are my favorite cookies ever. Can I please, 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 please have a cookie? I love those cookies. Can I please, please, please have a cookie? You're not going to look at the kid and go, okay, tell me about your day. Do you deserve a cookie? What did you do that's worthy of this cookie? No, you're going to be like, oh, here, I have 50 cookies. Take one. Take 2. You're so cute. Just take more. You're not going to withhold and say, sorry, you were an unwanted pregnancy, therefore you don't get to have a cookie. Sorry, you acted like a 2-year-old and threw a tantrum when you couldn't get what you wanted because you didn't know how to express yourself emotionally. So no more cookies for you, ever. You would never do that. But yeah, we do it to ourselves, and we beat ourselves up over and over and over and over again. Another layer to not allowing ourselves to feel worthy is, it's interesting because I'm like surrounded by light. It looks like there's like a light. Oh yeah, there is. There's like a light beam right there. Huh, interesting. So one of the reasons why we don't allow ourselves to feel worthy of all the best things in life is because we can create this belief that if we have any darkness at all inside of us, then we can't be light because we have some darkness. And actually, Rick and I were having a conversation about this very same thing during the creation of this kit. And in this conversation, it was very apparent that both of us were like, there is a little bit of darkness in all of us. And it's supposed to be there. Because if you think about it, how else are we supposed to learn cause and effect? How else are we supposed to balance? And by darkness, I don't mean like evil. I mean the shadow side of us, the pieces that we haven't seen yet and we haven't been able to heal yet. But we're a work in progress. So we're always going to be seeing those pieces, and they're always going to evolve. And we're not going to have every single day where we're on sunshine and roses and feel like life is great. Some days I still go, okay, you know what? I'm done with life. I'm crawling in my bed and I'm not talking to anybody and I'm not coming out until I feel better. And then, you know what? Magically, a couple hours later, I feel better. I just needed a break and a timeout and a nap and a cookie. We're all just 2-year-olds. So if you get grouchy, you know what you need. But if I have this darkness within me, this is one of the things we say, is if I have this darkness within me, then how can I be loved? How can I be worthy? Because we look at other people and we don't see their darkness. We just see their light. And, or maybe all we see is darkness and then we lose faith in everybody. That could be a thing too. And so allowing ourselves to say, can I still be loved even though? Can I still be loved even with this darkness? Can I still be loved even if my leg fell off tomorrow? Because legs just randomly fall off, right? Can I still be loved, and can I still be worthy of food? Can I still be loved and can I be worthy of a safe place to sleep? Can I still be loved and can I be worthy of receiving unconditional love? Somebody that adores me and loves me no matter what. And except for if you're a jerk, because if you're a jerk, you're not going to get the love you want. So don't be a jerk. And if you're struggling to feel worthy, one of the things that I recommend is journaling down what is it that you're afraid of if you felt worthy. So if I felt worthy and I showed up without holding back at all, what am I afraid of? Well, most of us, it'd be, I'm afraid people are going to reject me. They're going to cut me down. They're going to put me in my place. So if I keep myself low and humble, then I don't have to worry about somebody lifting me up too high or me lifting myself up too high just to be kicked down again. But that's not true. That's not actually how it works. Because if you don't have any worth, then you're always going to be around pond scum. And think of the lotus seed that's in your steaming kit. The lotus is always around pond scum. And it will stay that way until it decides, you know what? I'm going to rise above this. I'm going to go somewhere. And it starts to rise through the murky, mucky water, and it reaches for, the sun. And it reaches for that sun. And then it opens and blooms, and that's the first time it gets to see all of the light. It spends all the rest of the time in the darkness. And so understanding like, okay, am I allowing myself to stay in this darkness by not allowing myself to feel any worth? Am I going to be brave enough to branch up? Because it doesn't know it's on the surface. It's never been there. It's just trusting like, okay, there's got to be something better. Keep going, keep going. And think about ponds. Ponds are all different depths, and yet so many ponds have lilies, whether it's shallow or it's super deep. And so think of how strong those ones that have to go up a long ways from the bottom of the pond. I think lilies are probably one of my favorite examples just because of that factor. They're also in the shadows, so they know how to brave the shadows. And when I say shadows, I mean that darkness. I mean what you do not see, because you're blasting so much light out that sometimes you don't see the shadows behind you. And that's where support from other people come in. But it can be scary to show that support, because if we're afraid people are going to reject us, then we reject that. So allowing yourself to perhaps journal and say, hey, what is it I'm really afraid of? And would this really happen? Because when it comes to things like worth and love, like let's say you get in a horrible car accident tomorrow and you become a paraplegic. Only from here up works. Are you still loved? Because you really can't do much. You can have your wit and your humor, You can still have a pretty face, but all of this isn't working. And so that means all of your conditions of you love me because I do this for you, and you love me because I do that for you, and I am worthy of consuming air because I do all these things. I could earn my place. That's also where a lot of empaths get really muddled, because a lot of times as empaths, if we feel like we came into this world not being wanted, we will absorb other people's crap and try and fix everybody so we can earn our place and make the world a better place. A lot of artists, we find ourselves there too, because we're like, well, if I can create this beautiful art, then I have created something in the world. And it can be many different types of art. It doesn't have to be just painting, but sometimes that's what we'll get into, is like the conditions that allow us to feel worthy. And so we're going to release those conditions. So I would make a list of what are the conditions that I feel like measure my worth, because your worth is immeasurable. And then I would write on your paper, where is it that I am claiming my worth? I think all of us have had somebody tell us that we were worthless. I don't know anybody that hasn't. So what is the lie that you've been telling yourself or letting other people dictate? Is the lie, well, I had one, because my husband left me, nobody will ever love me because I have all this baggage. So I'm not worth very much. In fact, I got married in the first place because I had a 3-year-old when I was 18, and nobody else is going to want me. This is the best I can do. And so we create these limitations and these beliefs. So I would invite you to write them down and do it before you do your steam, so that way you can dive into what you're releasing from that. Next, I want to talk about a negative perspective that comes up a lot with my clients in the private sessions, and that is the faulty self-perspectives we have. So this is where we believe something about ourselves. So you have like a filter or protective, or like, a mask. Think of your crystal grid. You have a mask that doesn't allow you to see something different. So you insist that you look a certain way, you assume people see you this ways, and then you actually create a reactive way to act. So for example, if I had a negative perspective that said, people think I'm too much, that's my filter. People think I'm too much, or I'm too busy. Oh, I do get that one a lot, because I am, and I love being busy. It's just who I am, and I'm okay with that because there's only one of me. So as I dive in, I could say, you know what? People think I'm too busy. People think I'm too much, and I'm too busy. So therefore, I will apologize for being too busy. And when I do tell somebody, hey, I actually don't have time for this, I'm going to apologize profusely, and then I'm going to add more work onto my already busy schedule to make up for the thing that I wasn't able to do. So now I'll spend double the amount of time doing something later because I feel bad and I feel guilty for not being able to do it because something's wrong with me because I'm too busy, and they said that something's wrong with me because I'm too busy. Do you see how fast that spirals? Where I could just say, oh, actually my plate's really full right now. And that's it. That's all I have to say. And people respect that, or they don't. But if they don't, they're probably not the kind of people I hang out with. Or you could do a faulty self-perspective that said, hey, I'm too much. People think I'm too much. So I'm going to hold back. I'm not going to tell people everything that I like to do. I'm not going to show people all of me. I only show them pieces of me because nobody can handle all of me. But when we do that, people are only getting fractions of you. And if they're an empath, they can feel they're only getting fractions, and they don't know why you don't trust them with all of you. And so they can feel you're holding back and hiding and withholding, and it feels icky. And because it feels icky, they block you, they push back, and they stay back. And they're like, oh no, people see I'm too much, because they're pushed back and they're staying back. And so dive in for a moment, and I would just take a few deep breaths, and I would tune in and ask yourself, what perspectives do I have about myself? What do I believe about myself that is not true, but I think is true? Where am I showing up and I'm trying to assume what other people are thinking, because nobody's ever thinking the thing that you think they're thinking. And so what is it that I'm assuming people are thinking about me? And where am I altering who I am? Where am I altering how I'm showing up? Where am I shifting that? Because none of that has anything to do with you. And the opinions other people think about you are actually none of your business. They are private thoughts. They are already filtered through somebody else's lens. Like, they're never going to be adequate. Even my own children, even my own lover, if I try and assume what they're thinking all the time, I'm usually wrong. 50-50. Even if I know somebody so well and have grown up with them and I've known them my whole life, even if I still switch lenses with them, I'm not going to see the world they see it, because we're each so unique that our filter is going to be 100% our own. That's why if you think about people who witness crimes, their story changes. Everybody saw the same thing and their stories are all completely different. Why? Because they have to filter it through their own system. Even doing intuitive healing, where I receive information from spirit, it still has to go through Holly Hope's brain, and it's going to come out however Holly Hope thinks it should come out. And it's not always the same way somebody else would have worded it. And if you go to somebody else and they get the same information, they're going to get it through a different vocabulary and a different filter, because they're different. There's not a single one of us that are the same. I hope some of these thoughts and ideas can start to provoke some deep downloads and deep tuning into you and your essence. How do I measure my worth? I can't. I can only claim it. So go claim it. And if you feel like it's gone too high and your ego's too big, guess what? People will let you know. Healthy people will let you know. Toxic people will let you know even when you're down low. And really, if you're worried about it, you're probably not going to be full of yourself, because all of us have doubts. All of us have things that we hold ourselves back and we limit ourselves on. And it's there because we're pushing ourselves. Anybody who is not worried about the fear of the unknown, or worried for a minute about what's coming, or, ooh, I hope I can handle this, or, ooh, I hope this is the right path. Anybody that's not constantly evaluating, they're not growing. And so if this is something where you're like, I feel like I'm out of my comfort zone so often, good job. It means you're growing. It means you're shifting. It means you're moving into something that's higher than you've ever been before. And that's why it feels weird and wonky and different. But as long as you claim your worth in the middle and say, you know what? I am of value just because I exist. Just because I exist. I get to be loved just because I exist. I get to consume natural resources like air just because I exist. There's no way to measure it, and there's nobody who can dictate if it is worth or if it isn't worth. If another human says, hey, you're not worth my time, oh, good, I'm not in alignment with you. Thank you for valuing my time as well, so I can go and spend time with somebody who is in alignment with me. Because that's what we're seeking, is people who can see the value in us without us having to blast it out or pretend to be something else, or giving pieces because we're afraid of how it will be received. I love you guys.